data from a failed federal hurricane relief program pre-Katrina. And they put it all online, and they said, well, you know what happened on your block. Here's what the government said happened. What really happened? So they put up a search box, put in your house number and your address, and see what the government said happened near you. Within 48 hours, they had 60,000 searches. They got tons of stories out of this. And then out of that, too, they got a volunteer cadre. It's Florida, so they all have white hair like me. A volunteer cadre of experts. You know, somebody said, I'm an engineer, and I know how this really works. Again, there's nothing new about that. We always went and found the engineer. But now here's the engineer saying, I want to be a regular volunteer to you. I always want to be available to you. Or an architect, or an accountant, and so on. And it's kind of goosebump to me, because it's a chance to work with the public in new ways. WNYC Radio here in New York wanted to get involved in this whole crowdsourcing thing, because it's cool. And one of the producers called me one day, and he said, I want to do this crowdsourcing thing. And he had some very highfalutin NPR-ish kind of idea. And I said, well, my only advice to you is come up with something simpler. This is what they came up with. They mobilized the Brian Lehrer show here in New York, as New Yorkers know, is a great show. Brian mobilized his audience and said, I want you all to go out tomorrow and go to the place where you shop and find out the price of a head of lettuce, iceberg, a quart of milk whole, and a six-pack of beer, Budweiser. I made fun of them for the choice of Budweiser. It didn't seem like a very NPR brand to me, but they convinced me that it was going to be in every store and every bodega in town. So people came back in, and they reported back the data from that. And you saw that there is a range of milk prices from $1.09 to $2.49, one neighborhood to the next. Now, you can probably ask, well, how do you know that's legitimate? Well, if you get enough data, you can kind of say that the outliers are either mistakes or great stories. If somebody had found out that milk cost $10 a gallon, that'd be a great story, because who the hell would buy it? Or that person screwed up. So there's ways to deal with the data, but if you put this across Queens College here within the CUNY system, has a socialexplorer.com, was a magnificent display of census data over the years in New York, and you can scroll across and see the changing demographics, race, education, income of the city. You put this kind of map over that, and you start to get stories about why are people being gouged? Well, the public helped, and that's exciting news. There's also the idea of any and all media all the time. This is the kit that Reuters now gives many of its journalists. They have a mobile phone, a keyboard, a mic, a solar battery, and a tripod. And my son gets mad at me every time I pull this out, but this is one of the phones that they gave out when I was at Davos. And you know, it opened my eyes to see journalism done in a new way, because I'd be in a hall there, and someone was there, and I just said, you mind if I just talk to you on the phone? And, I told them it was for Reuters, but it was so simple and so light. I'm not suggesting this replaces real cameras. It doesn't. But there are opportunities you have to grab journalism wherever you can, and that's exciting. You can also do this live. I have broadcast from this phone live to the internet. And that's fascinating what that does to the architecture of news and all kinds of opportunities, but witnesses will surely be doing this soon. Finally, there's data as news. This is a guy named Adrian Holavati who started a site that unfortunately isn't up now called chicagocrime.org that has wowed everyone in the business. He took crime data from Chicago, put it against Google Maps, and you could see where all the kinds of crimes happen in all the neighborhoods of Chicago. And someone else did a mashup on top of that and did a program so you could trace your route home and find out all the crimes that happened along the route. So there are new job descriptions, new opportunities for all of you. And I'll echo again what Wayne said. Don't worry. Wayne's from now on going to be the be happy, don't worry guy. Yes. Don't worry about thinking you're making some indelible choice. As you have heard from us as a faculty, we believe in bringing this as close together as possible, giving you as many opportunities as possible, while still assuring that you have the essential skills you're going to need if you're going to go to specific jobs. But you're all going to learn all media, so don't worry about that. But out of that comes all kinds of new job descriptions. Yes, reporter, but reporter across all media. Producers. There's a lot more producers being hired now by online sites who are more packagers. It's another definition of editor. There's this idea of curating the web, of linking to things out there, finding the good stuff, which is a constant need. People always say, oh my God, there's too much. What do I do about it? Well, let's hope that we're there for them. You may be a community organizer, like WNYC, and trying to get people mobilized to do things. You may be an educator. which is kind of a new role for journalists. But if you're going to work with the public and they go out and they do journalism with you, but they didn't do a great job, your reaction could be to fire them, but you're not paying them, so you can't. Or your reaction could be to help them do it better. So I believe that you're going to come out of, you're going to go into journalism with new roles like that. If you like technology, you can get involved in technology. I'll say in a minute, don't worry, we're not going to turn you all into geeks. You're not going to have to know how to program things. But if you want to know how to do that, if you want to do things, there are opportunities for you in your careers. And many of you will be inventors. You will create new things. It's a great, great time to do this. So this is a structure that I'm using you as guinea pigs because Sandeep and I and our colleagues in Interactive have kind of put this together as a way to express what we teach in Interactive. So there's 4 levels, roughly. Various levels for various tools. A knowledge of the tool and a skill to use it, an ability to spec it. That is to say, I know what this tool can do. I'm going to go to the geek, I'm going to go to the programmer and say, I want it to do this, 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 and this, okay? There's the ability to adapt. Maybe you get a template. And within that template, there are things that you can change, but you don't have to create it from scratch. And then there is the ability to create from scratch. That's going to vary tool by tool, because we want to make sure that we emphasize that the priority here is you doing journalism. So though you'll learn technology tools and you'll work with them a lot, you're not going to come out of here going to work for Microsoft, I hope. So what do we teach in tools at various levels? Web structure. You kind of need to know how the web works. And we'll talk about that early on. This is mainly interactive, but there'll be things that you'll get bits of all of this in the first course that I'll talk about here in a minute. Blogging. Now, I got to tell you that the first term, besides scaring the first class and almost losing them, the other big mistake I made in the first term was I did a terrible job teaching blogging. And as a blogger, that's ironic. But everybody comes in with an assumption about what blogging is. And I learned quickly that all assumptions are different. So we're going to kind of tear it apart and figure out what it's good for. The bottom line, a blog is just a publishing tool. History's easiest, cheapest, fastest publishing tool. That's all it is. So it can be used for a million things. But you're going to use that tool here for journalism. Quick story. Anybody here know the name Brian Stelter? New York Times. Well, yeah, you ruined my punchline, but yes. That's okay. No. If you know, I'm joking. Brian, when he was a sophomore at Towson, started a blog called Cable Newser that later became TV Newser. And he did an incredible job covering the cable news business. He knew who got the scoop first. He knew every job change. He knew everything that was going on, to the point that Brian Williams reads him, would send him tips, was mad if he wasn't in it. Brian wrote it anonymously because he was a sophomore in Towson, writing this in his dorm room. The New York Times outed him as a 19-year-old on their front page with a story. His blog was then bought by Media Bistro, and as soon as he graduated, his contract there ended, and he went to work for the New York Times. And he is now doing bang-up work covering TV and media at the New York Times. Now, I'm not trying to suggest that the blog is the cure to the common cold and the key to all careers. I'm not trying to suggest that at all. What I am trying to say is that you can start journalistic endeavors now, and that you have these tools to do that, and you're going to have a public you serve. If you really take on a beat and own it, you have the opportunity to do that. So blogging we're going to teach. Web, audio, and video, you're going to learn most of that in broadcast in the first term, but we'll do crazy fun stuff with that too. Photography, you won't learn everything there is to do with photography. What you'll learn is a subset of Photoshop. You'll make slideshows. In the first term, that's a tool called Sound Slides. Later on, you'll make them with if you go on with Interactive, make them with Final Cut. You'll learn all the equipment, again, mainly from the broadcast time, but we'll use all the equipment as well, and Dan is going to take you all through that next momentarily.